All right.
So the point of this is just to find out how COVID-19 has affected the health of our communities and specifically the work that we do.
Uh-huh.
So we'll just start if you state your name and spell it for me.
Okay. So my name is Terry Chase, Terrychase.
Can you tell me where you work and what your title is, your job title?
Sure. I work at Colorado Mesa University. I'm Associate Professor of Nursing, Mental Health.
Okay. And can you describe your average day pre-pandemic? What?
Yeah. Well,
work like?
Twice a week I was teaching, 2 classes a day for a total of about 4 hours, Monday and Friday. I had clinical time, office hours in the afternoons of those Monday and Friday. And then during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was facilitating, supervising, and meeting with students in our various mental health clinical sites. So I pretty much working, all told. I mean, I was really only supposed to be working 4 days a week, but in those 4 days a week, I was probably averaging about 45 hours.
Okay. And then COVID-19 came along, right? And
correct. And so I continued meeting with my students via Zoom on Mondays and Fridays. So I held full live classes.
Okay.
Had a minimum of 5 to 6 hours of office hours via Zoom during the week for both advisees and for students. Our clinicals were pretty much shut down. So what I devised was creative ways for students a lot of them had already finished up, or not really finished, but got close to finishing. So I looked at all the hours that students needed and I averaged it to 13, everybody, and I came up with 13 hours of online creative work for them to complete those hours as well as finish their paperwork.
Okay. And so then what happened to those students? Is the semester over?
No, not yet. We still have, they've completed everything for their clinicals. And that included, we did two half days of clinical presentations. So I had students actually utilizing Zoom and they did 5-minute presentations with a PowerPoint around a client that they wanted to tell the story of over the semester. And that went really well. I mean, the students, we all got really good with Zoom. I've taken some classes on interactive activities. So I had students being able to, I put them in small groups. We've done responses and reactions. They could put little stars and hearts and, draw pictures on the screens. So we're pretty much done with the clinical part. I've got all that kind of wrapped up. And now I just have one more online big test and then their final that I'm just going to email them and they're going to email it back because I don't like online testing.
Oh.
I don't like it. It's just too hard for me. Yeah, I'll probably have to do it, but I did one. It took me 2.5 hours. This is okay if I say all this?
Yeah.
Okay. It took me 2.5 hours to upload one exam. And my shoulders were killing me by the time I was done. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather go do a 20-mile bike ride on my hand cycle, have that kind of pain than sit in front of a stupid computer and upload it for 2.5 hours. So,
oh, geez.
I'm probably going to have to do it again, but for now, I'm all right.
What's been the most difficult adjustment for you and then also for your students?
Yeah, I think a difficult adjustment has been the lack of, that's why I'm so adamant about face-to-face classes via video conferencing. It's the loss of human contact. So I'm trying to stimulate that and simulate that as much as possible through these face-to-face, encounters. I think the students, they have also, the loss of the challenges has been, their loss of camaraderie, their loss of, I think some of it is loss of schedule because now they have to figure it out on their own. And so loss of schedule, loss of structure. Some students are very isolated. Some students are in apartments with 3 other roommates. I've had a couple of students that have been totally alone the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think some of the challenges is that, nursing in particular is such a human-to-human contact sport, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in training, and for me in my teaching with the students, I'm high on, you got to know how to deal with the human being in front of you. I mean, that's really what I do. And the first human being they have to deal with is me. And, and being able to handle being present, being authentic, taking, receiving and giving feedback, being able to monitor their own, nervousness and anxiety and all of that. So I do a lot of facilitation of just, human communication, self-awareness, coping strategies for themselves. So I think, one thing is that a big challenge with all this online stuff is we don't, unless we're going to just specialize in telemedicine, we don't just deal with people on screen. We have to get really good with dealing with the live person, the live body in front of us. So I think that's been a big challenge. And I think for some students, this kind of online learning environment is really difficult for them because it's unstructured. Like for me, at least, I'm like, you better show up at 7:30 because that's when the class is.
Yeah.
If you're not in 7:30 class, then you can drop into the 10:20 class, but one or the other, you got to be there. But other teachers have just recorded, like voiced over their PowerPoints or recorded themselves, and the students can click on it anytime they want. Well, even with as much structure as I have provided to students, because I feel like that's my responsibility as a teacher,
mm-hmm.
to create structure for them to work within. Because to me, that helps allay some of their anxiety.
Yeah.
Because without structure, it's like, they're all over the place. So by me providing structure, and even for some students, I mean, they're sliding in under the wire of the very last minute of the very last day and time they're supposed to get something in. So I think lack of human-to-human structure can be very challenging. And I think also a very, very important piece is their own experience of this pandemic.
Yeah.
Their own isolation, their own fears, their own loss, their own, financial, because many of my students are still working or had been working. Some of them are continuing, but they're not rich kids. I mean, they have to work. And so they're either working, and many of them are in healthcare.
Working in healthcare.
To get COVID. And many of my students are out in the elder care world, and they are scared to death, and they have also experienced the death of their clients. So there's a lot going on. And that's just the 47 kids that I know of.
Yeah. How far along in their education are they?
Well, at the end of this semester, they will be at the midpoint of their 2-year nursing program. So they are in their second semester of nursing school with me. So we call it level 2.
Okay.
And I call it the bottom of their junior year. So starting next semester, they have 2 more semesters, and they're gone. They're done. So they're at a very important point now. And I do some process work with them around, okay, you're almost at the tipping point now. In a couple of weeks, you're like closer to graduation than you were when you started with me.
Uh-huh.
This is really important about giving them perspective about where they are, where they have to go. And sometimes they're going to get lost in, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I do some process work with them about, a touchstone. Okay, go back to your touchstone. Why are you in this? Why are you going into this? Remember how far you've come.
Yeah.
Skills and knowledge and experience that are going to just continue to grow. So I'm my biggest goal for the last 6-7 weeks has been to keep 47 kids in the nursing program, in the nursing profession, before they even graduate, because I'm fearful that we're going to lose some just because they can't handle this thing.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It is.
And then I hear nursing school is pretty rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
With all the added stress.
Yes, it is.
The
Yes,
life
it is.
stress that now they have.
Mm-hmm. Bless you.
Excuse me. Have you heard stories from your students about their work or their experiences with COVID?
I haven't heard a lot of in-depth stuff, but I do know that there's been. I have one student who was over in Denver working at an elder care facility, and it was just I could see him week by week, because he would drop into our class like if he had a break, or sometimes he took the day off to come to whatever. But I could see him becoming more tired, more stressed, more sad, and then eventually, I think about 2 weeks ago, he said that he just had to drop out of his job for a while and come back to Grand Junction just to kind of get himself squared away back into school.
Yeah.
So that's one story. Another student of mine, her family was in Minnesota, so she went back to Minnesota. A large family. They also had a big agricultural, thing that they did with a bunch of animals, and so she got back involved in the family thing. So that was good. But again, for her, it was hard to focus back on school because now she's back involved in the family business and 7 other siblings. And then she was and all of her books were still in Grand Junction.
Well,
so her paperworks were really, really behind, and she was not a bad student. And I finally just emailed her and said, "What's going on? Where is your stuff?" She said, "Well, I'm really struggling because all of my books and all my stuff is back in Grand Junction." So, and then for probably 2 or 3 weeks, she had been trying to get on a plane to get back to Grand Junction.
Mm-hmm.
Cancel. And then finally, about 7 days ago, she was arrived back in Grand Junction. She got her paperwork together and got it in. So, yeah, I'm concerned about them. I'm concerned about them as people, which is really my focus.
Yeah. Grand Junction, we're a different, how do you feel about the COVID response in our community and state?
Well, I don't know if you want to record this, but I am a little concerned. I'm not quite sure we're getting the numbers accurate. I think we do have some natural physical distancing here because of the wide open spaces. I mean, I live in a neighborhood that, we see people, but everybody goes in their house and we don't see anybody. But I am a little concerned about the testing numbers, been very low. I've also heard some speculation that a good percentage of those tests were, something wasn't right. So I'm a little concerned. I'm also concerned about the let's open up and blatant disregard for the possibility of a surge, because we don't have enough beds in our hospital systems to cover a surge.
Mm-hmm. Have your students expressed concerns about any of those things? Or are they more focused?
I think they're too, they're kind of myopic, which they are anyway.
Yeah. Centrally focused.
Huh?
Centrally focused and
Yes. Yes. So I'm always bringing in events like, hey, look what was in the paper today.
Yeah.
It's harder to do that now. But I do keep them up. I'm sending them articles all the time. We did a unit on crisis, disaster and crisis nursing, whatever. And so I said, look, it feels kind of dumb reading out of the book, because we're in it. We're in a crisis.
Yeah.
So I related the stuff in the chapter, the major points I wanted them to get to, what does that look like now? And so I try to keep them involved in the current world, and break open this myopic viewpoint. And a lot of the beauty of the clinicals, because we would go to, I have probably 25 locations, at least, maybe more, around there, 25 that my students go to. Not everybody goes to everything. I call it the sampler. Mm-hmm. When they're with me, they're going to get the sampler box of candy. The one with the nuts and the orange and the vanilla and all that.
Yeah, you might like one and you might not like another.
Right. But they're going to go to a lot of different things. So part of the clinical, the beauty of the clinicals was that they got to see Job Corps. They didn't know it. They didn't even know where Colburn was.
Mm-hmm.
They got to go to the soup kitchen and Catholic Outreach. They got to go to Women's Recovery, the 90-day drug and alcohol rehab program. Blew them away. They would go to the inpatient units at the VA. We've gone to Mine Springs. St. Mary's has some mental health. District 51, Pathways, Strive, Ariel, Hilltop Life Adjustment Program. You know, so my students were like, wow, there's a lot of stuff in our valley.
Mm-hmm.
And where are the holes? So my concern going forward, and the school is doing some planning and some like looking forward stuff, is how am I going to give them that experience and open their eyes to mental health? Because I said mental health is everywhere. So we're going everywhere, you know. So everywhere we go, we need to be looking for mental health aspects. But how do I get them that experience and that exposure if we have to be, you know, if we can't go there? So I'm devising some ways.
And when does the semester end?
Today is the 4th.
Fifth.
About 10 days. So next week, and then we'll be done.
And then do you take a break over the summer? How does that work?
I'm not teaching classes. Okay, let me just say that.
Yeah.
I stopped fighting with people. Oh, you have the whole summer off. Yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. You know, but what I'm doing, and I'm doing it now, is I'm getting ready for the fall.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not teaching, but now with this, like we have 3 scenarios.
How do you prepare for the fall when you don't know what's going to happen?
No kidding. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, it could be fully open,
yep,
partially open, or completely at home.
Correct. So yeah, so I'll take some time off. I have other things that I am working on in my life. You know, I have some writing projects. I have business development that I'm doing. I do some coaching. You know, my team work and facilitation work that I do outside of this. So yeah, I'll be busy.
How has COVID affected those things?
Yeah, well, I had, this is outside my school job, but my own business development that I've been doing is I had 2 major speaking and facilitating opportunities in March.
Mm-hmm.
One in Denver, and one was in Northern California. And both of those got axed. Now, the one that was in Denver, I have been able to do the webinar keynote talk. I did that a couple weeks ago to over 200 people. And then next week, I'll be facilitating, I'll continue doing my commitment to them, and I will facilitate a panel discussion. The Northern California one, it was a fast food chain. It was 47 district managers and leaders of a fast food entity.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me to just be on hold. And so pretty soon I'm going to write them an email and say, look, I've gotten really good with Zoom. I can do pretty much everything you wanted me to do. We just need to set a date and do it. So I think there's still opportunity for that. So it's been very creative. I've also created a small group coaching program where I have 6 people working on, it's both group and individual coaching, working on charting a path in uncertain times. So I've been able to continue my work, just kind of tweak it a little bit to, the way we can do things now.
How do you think how do you foresee it will change or alter how care is given in the future?
Well, I just think there has to be more regard for the healthcare worker. And I think it was, I don't know if this is the right words, but like almost an afterthought of, oh God, we better make sure we have enough PPE.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And of course, you need to change them in between every patient.
Yes.
You can't be like, anyway. So I think there's going to be a big step up in that. I think also there's, I think sometimes in healthcare, we've gotten so busy and so technologically oriented, we can sometimes bypass the human element. And I think now with all of the, everything's covered up and it's like, oh, our presence as a human being is so important.
Mm-hmm.
The healing in the healing opportunity. I'm not talking about woo-woo and everyone's going to, no. I'm talking about the healing environment, the healing opportunity for the patient, that it's like, oh, yeah, this isn't enough. So how can we make sure that the human being comes through all that PPE cover up to make contact with the client and the patient who's suffering?
Yeah. Do you ever talk with your students about health care disparities or social determinants of health?
Yeah, we do. And we do a lot of that with, the exposure to the different mental health clinicals from a mental health standpoint. I mean, I'm not the public health guru. I don't do community health. But when I look at healthcare disparities among the populations that we service with mental health, there are disparities,
Can you talk about those?
Yes. I mean, I can't say that I'm explicit. I don't know if you're asking me to be explicit, but we do talk about that. We talk about the homeless people, they particularly accessing mental health care. I mean, 46% of the homeless population have a mental illness. 46%. No, they're not receiving treatment, diagnosis, anything. We also know that there's a big disparity in the identification of a mental illness and a 10-year lag before they actually get, diagnosed and treated, particularly with the diagnosis of schizophrenia. So, like it has a prevalence among, older adolescents, young adults, particularly males. But then where we start to see some psychotic breaks or some behavior issues or whatever, but oftentimes it takes 10 years. And this is from an American Psychiatric Nurse Association document. So I'm not just pulling these out of my head, but, this is what I tell students is that, we mental health is everywhere. And part of the reason why there is disparity is there's a stigma against mental illness. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, it's all the weirdos. Oh, And so my students, and I talk about that right from the beginning. What do you know about mental health? Well, it's scary. I don't want to talk to you. All right. So by the end, when I just looked at 47, I just sat through 47 case presentations, and my students can say, I really got it, that I came in with all kinds of bias, and I thought they were going to be climbing the walls and being all crazy. But, I really got to see the human being in the room. I'm like, good. You got it. That's what they need to have.
There's almost like they're homeless and they're crazy and they deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Kind of mentality.
Yes, there is. There can be, yes.
How do you think this will influence you as a future educator of healthcare providers?
Me? Well, I know that my purpose in life is continuing to evolve. And I've been on a journey for 32 years about what made me feel better as a patient, because I have a spinal cord injury. I use a wheelchair, I can walk some, all that. So I've been on a journey for 32 years about what made me feel better. And that has led me to, 3 graduate degrees, one of them being the nursing doctorate from the University of Colorado, which is based on the theory of human caring and about how that relationship, that authenticity, that showing up for the patient is a healing, is part of that healing. So my evolution as a healthcare provider and as a teacher and as an educator is highly impacted by this pandemic, because I feel like there's going to be healthcare providers that are like, we're going to have like dead bodies along the side of the road, or very mutilated, very injured, very hurt healthcare provider people that need some work with coming back to themselves. So I will continue to be an educator, and I will continue to evolve my work to serve those in healthcare, to help them and to assist them. because I know as a patient what made me feel better. It was somebody who showed up, who was present, who could be truthful with me, like, yeah, you're paralyzed and let's get on with it. That kind of stuff. And who are caring. And so I will continue. So I've been highly influenced in this by creating, new ways of delivering my classes, really getting to how can I serve my healthcare provider comrades to assist them in their own healing. So that's kind of where I'm going with this.
That's a great answer. Has anything surprised you? And that can be, personally, it can be, in the community, it could be in your classroom, it could be with other instructors or people that you work with.
Well, I think a couple of things. I think I'm not surprised, and yet I am very grateful that the students have continued to hang in there. I am grateful for their commitment in a time of a lot of difficulty and uncertainty. So I can't say I'm surprised, although I am very grateful for that, and I commend them. I think the other thing for me is, in my the clinical supervision days, I would drive to about 7 different places in town, and I was in and out of my vehicle, 12 to 14 times a day. And although I miss seeing some of the people that I make contact with, I don't mind being at home. I don't mind working from home. I can be very productive here. And yeah, so I think that was a nice surprise.
Well, how would you want history to remember this event? What do you want people to learn from this?
Right. Well, I think one thing is that back in 1918, they had a similar kind of gig. You can see the pictures of their
Spanish flu.
They didn't have technology and they didn't have the science that we have now. So I really believe that one of the things we need to come out of this with is a much more higher regard for science and data, and to be a science, make our decisions based on that, good science, solid science. So that would be one thing. The second thing is that we have so much more advantage now with technology, and to really take advantage of, coming up with new ways of teaching, new ways of being in contact, really heightening our awareness of human contact is, we're wired for relationship. As human beings, we are wired for relationship. And this pandemic the social distancing, it's really physical distancing. Social isolation is a killer.
Yeah.
That's what I preached that the whole semester. Social isolation is a killer. Well, we're promoting all of us getting killed now by social isolation.
Social distancing. Yeah.
Right. No. So we need to we need to find ways to not be isolated and to reach out and to make connection, because this is what's going to keep us going. And we are living. I was talking to a client yesterday, and she's like, I just don't know. And I said, well, we've never done this before. Our generation, the ones who are on the planet right now, the younger ones, we've never lived through a world war. We did not live in the Depression. Some of those people are still around. And she goes, oh yeah, my mom never got over the Depression. And I'm like, yeah, we're in something like that right now.
Yeah.
So this is yeah, pretty wild.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I would say one thing, one of the modalities that I expose my students to over that I've been working with for probably 12 years now is working with people and working with horses, and the connection, the work that horses can help human beings with. And for the last 3 or 4 semesters, I would take my students out to experience a time working with horses. The official title is equine facilitated learning, where by working in relationship with the horse and developing that relationship and working with their own self-awareness, communication. You know, horses are masters at nonverbal communication. I'm not able to provide that right now. And that is probably one thing that I really miss, being able to, I still go out and do, you know, I do some work with the horse once a week, but that's probably one, I can't do that over online.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be in the barn. They need to be next to a horse. They need to be getting dirt on them, you know, that kind of stuff. So I would say that that's one thing that once things open up a little bit, I'm gonna like, hey, guess what?
We're coming back.
It's the summer. I know you know you've already forgotten that I'm your teacher, but if you want to come out and do this, I have an opportunity for you to learn, and that will also be part of my work with healthcare providers going forward.
Yeah,
to come back to themselves, and to be with the horse in partnership. The horses really help us get centered and get grounded and really, you know, be authentic. So that would be one thing that I'm really looking forward to being able to open up again.
Yeah.
My offerings to the world.
Well, thanks for your time this morning.
You bet.